The observation deck of station Kepler 9 offered a view of 17 different star systems, their light bleeding together in a tapestry of cosmic indifference. Bella pressed her scaled hand against the transparent aluminum, her three-fingered palm leaving a faint impression of moisture. Her kind sweated when afraid, and she had been afraid for what felt like cycles now. She was Zephyrian, a species known across the galactic community for their mathematical prowess and crystalline memory matrices. Her people had contributed algorithms that made faster-than-light travel possible, had mapped gravitational anomalies that saved countless ships from oblivion. And yet here she stood, alone on a station populated by dozens of species, rejected by every single one. The Chromalian delegation had turned her away first. "Your contamination protocols are inadequate," they had said, their compound eyes refusing to meet her gaze. The Veracians had been more direct. "We cannot risk our colony's purity." Even the Salithi, whose philosophy supposedly embraced all sentient life, had found excuses wrapped in apologetic tones. Bella's crime was simple and unavoidable. She carried the Phantom Syndrome, a genetic mutation that affected 0.03% of Zephyrians. It wasn't contagious, wasn't dangerous to others, but it marked her as other even among her own kind. Her neural pathways fired differently, created patterns that traditional Zephyrian society found unsettling. She thought in curves where they thought in lines, saw possibilities where they saw certainties. Her homeworld had exiled her with clinical efficiency. The council had given her a small ship, provisions for 6 months, and a list of stations that might accept refugees. She had tried them all. Kepler 9 was her last hope, and even here she had exhausted every avenue. "They're afraid of what they don't understand," a voice said behind her. Bella turned sharply, her dorsal spines flaring in instinctive defense. The speaker stood about 5 meters away, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. He was human, she realized with a start. She had seen humans before, of course. They were relative newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved FTL travel only 70 standard years ago. They were still considered primitive by most species, their technology borrowed and reverse-engineered rather than invented, their understanding of quantum mechanics rudimentary at best. This human was young by their standards, perhaps in his 3rd decade of life. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead, and his eyes were an unusual shade of brown that seemed to shift in the station's artificial light. He wore a simple jumpsuit marked with the insignia of independent traders. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said, lowering his hands. "I'm Leo Martinez." "Bella," she replied, her voice translator rendering her native clicks and harmonics into galactic standard. "You were listening." "Hard not to. The Veracian ambassador has a voice that carries." Leo moved closer, stopping at what he seemed to judge a respectful distance. "I heard about your situation, the Phantom Syndrome." Bella's spines flattened against her back in resignation. "Then you know why I cannot stay here. The station administrator has given me 3 cycles to leave. My ship has fuel for perhaps 1 more jump, but nowhere to go." "What if you did have somewhere to go?" Leo asked. His face held an expression she couldn't quite parse. Humans were notoriously difficult to read, their emotions playing across their features in subtle ways that most alien species found baffling. "There is nowhere," Bella said simply. "I have tried every registered colony, every station, every settlement that claims to welcome refugees. The answer is always the same. You haven't tried Earth." The statement hung between them like a supernova frozen in time. Bella's translator chirped in confusion, running the word through its database. Earth, the human homeworld, a planet so far from the established trade routes that most species forgot it existed. "Why would Earth accept me when no one else will?" Bella asked, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Leo smiled, and there was something warm in the expression, something that seemed genuine. "Because we're a planet of misfits ourselves. Do you know why it took us so long to develop FTL? It wasn't because we're stupid. It was because we spent thousands of years fighting amongst ourselves, dividing ourselves by arbitrary characteristics, rejecting and fearing anyone who didn't fit into neat little boxes. He stepped closer to the viewport, standing beside her now. We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, climate collapse. We came right to the edge of extinction more than once. And you know what saved us? Finally learning that our differences weren't weaknesses. They were strengths. Bella studied him with her lateral eyes, searching for deception. Your species still fights wars. Yeah, we do. Old habits die hard, but we don't exile our own anymore, not for being different. We learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Leo turned to face her fully. My great-grandmother had what they called autism. A century and a half ago, people treated her like she was broken, something to be fixed or hidden away. Now, we understand that neurological diversity is just part of being human. Some of our best scientists, artists, engineers, they think differently from the majority, and that's good. The phantom syndrome is not the same as human neurodiversity, Bella protested, though something in her chest cavity fluttered with an emotion she was afraid to name. Maybe not exactly, but the principle is the same, isn't it? You're not sick, you're not dangerous. You just process information differently than other Zephyrians expect. Leo's eyes met hers, and she was struck by the intensity she saw there. Earth has a colony ship leaving in 5 cycles. It's heading to a new settlement in the Tau Ceti system. They're looking for people with unique perspectives, different ways of thinking. I think you'd be perfect. Why would you help me? The question escaped before Bella could stop it. You don't know me. My presence could bring complications to your colony. Leo shrugged, a gesture that involved lifting both shoulders. Because someone helped my great-grandmother when she needed it. Because I've seen what happens when societies reject their most vulnerable members. They lose the very perspectives that could save them. And honestly, because it's the right thing to do. The right thing to do. Such a human concept, loaded with moral weight that most species approached with far more calculation. The galaxy ran on contracts and mutual benefit, on carefully negotiated treaties and exchange of resources. Humanity's insistence on acting based on ethical principles rather than pure self-interest had earned them a reputation as either dangerously naive or refreshingly genuine, depending on who you asked. I have no resources to offer, Bella said quietly. No trade goods, no specialized skills that your colony would need. You're a Zephyrian mathematician, aren't you? Even with phantom syndrome, especially with phantom syndrome, you see patterns differently. We're setting up new agricultural systems, new water reclamation processes, new power grids. All of that requires complex modeling. Leo pulled a data pad from his pocket. I'm not just some random trader, by the way. I'm part of the colony's recruitment team. It's literally my job to find people who will help make Tau Ceti work. He held out the pad. On its screen, Bella could see schematics and proposals, population manifests and resource allocations. It was real. This wasn't some elaborate deception or pitying gesture. It was an actual offer. Will you be my savior? The words came out before Bella could stop them. A direct translation of a Zephyrian phrase that meant something closer to, will you be the one who changes my path? Leo seemed to understand the weight of the question. His expression grew solemn. I'm not a savior, Bella. I'm just a guy trying to do right by people who have been dealt a bad hand. But yeah, I can get you on that colony ship. I can give you a chance to start over somewhere that'll value what you bring instead of fearing what makes you different. Bella looked out at the stars again, at the vast indifference of space. She had traveled so far, had been rejected so many times. Hope was a dangerous thing, a fragile construct that broke under too much weight. And yet, standing here beside this human who barely knew her, who had nothing to gain from helping her, she felt something stirring in her chest. What would I need to do? She asked. Say yes, get on the ship, help us build something better. Leo's smile returned. And maybe teach us some of that Zephyrian mathematics. we're still using pretty clunky equations for quantum field manipulation. For the first time in cycles, Bella's spines lifted not in defense but in something approaching hope. I can do that. Then welcome to Earth's extended family, Leo said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. After a moment's hesitation, Bella placed her scaled palm in his. His skin was warm, his grip gentle but firm. She didn't know if this colony would be her final home, if humanity's promise of acceptance would hold when faced with the reality of her differences. But for the first time since her exile, she had a path forward. She had someone willing to take a chance on her not despite who she was, but because of it. As they stood together in the observation deck, watching the stars turn in their ancient dance, Bella allowed herself to believe that perhaps, somewhere among the humans of Tau Ceti, she might finally find where she belonged. And that belief, fragile as it was, felt like salvation enough.